Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Minecraft modding tutorial for Forge 1.19. In this tutorial we are going to be making a block, so let's just go ahead and let's get started. So let's jump straight into the code. Let's come into our init package, let's create a new class, and we're just going to call this something along the lines of block init. By the way, I just wanted to mention, it doesn't matter what you call these classes, just call them sensible names, something that makes sense. If you want people to help you, if you ever get stuck, you need people to help you, have sensible names. People aren't going to be able to help if you have stupid names. So once again, we're just going to create a deferred register here of type block, and we're going to call that blocks is equal to deferred register dot create forge registries dot blocks. This should already be fairly familiar to you. Tutorial mod dot mod id as our mod id. Then let's just go ahead, let's define a block public static final registry object of type block, and I'm going to call this example underscore block is equal blocks dot register example underscore block, a supplier of a new block. This time it's a little bit different, so this time we're going to have block behavior dot properties dot of, and then we're just going to pass in here a material for our block. So the material I'm going to use, I'll use amethyst. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. And then once again, you can just do your normal properties on the end here. So for example, let's see, what do we want? I don't know. Let's say we want some friction of 0.5. Okay, just a example, and boom, that is your block. However, this means you have a block, that's great, but it means you won't have an item for your block because you're only registering a block. You're not registering a block item. So what we need to go ahead and do is register a block item as well. So let's come into item init, and all we need to do is go public static final registry object. Now this time, instead of using item, we're going to use something called block item, and I'm going to call this example underscore block underscore item is equal items.register. I'm going to call this once again example underscore block, so we're going to keep the item name the same name as what the block is called. And instead of being a supplier of a new item, it's going to be a new block item. And all we need to do here is pass in the block. So we will do block init dot example block, and then we'll pass in our normal properties. So a new item dot properties, and we'll just put it in tab creative mode tab dot building blocks. So what on earth is happening here? Why do we have an error? Provided registry object, we need a block. How on earth do we get a block from a registry object? So if you recall back to the last episode, I explained that a registry object is simply just a supplier. And obviously you should know what a supplier is. That is just basic Java knowledge. So what do you do to get the object from a supplier? You simply just call .get. Now, the important thing to notice, if you're ever to try and call .get, is you need to ensure that item or that object has actually been registered when you call .get. Because if you call .get when it hasn't been registered, then it will be null. So essentially, this is fine because blocks are registered before items. That's just how it works. So I know for a fact that at this stage that'll be fine. But you just need to be careful, you know. There isn't really a definitive guide of when you can call it and when you can't. It's just a matter of knowing when things are registered. If you ever get confused about that, feel free to ask in my Discord server. It is linked in the description. I'm sure people there will be happy to explain in a little bit more detail, which is a little harder to convey over video. So yeah, that's our item. Now, you may want to go ahead and actually create a method to do this for you. So, for example, let's just quickly try and make a method here. And this might fail. Actually, no, we'll cover this in the next tutorial. I'm going to make a separate tutorial for creating a method to do this for us. Just something to make it a little bit simpler, as registering both a block and a block item can be a little bit annoying sometimes. For now, we'll leave it like this, but in a later tutorial, we're going to want to maybe make an alteration there. Now, you may think that's it with the code. It's not, because as you remember in the last tutorial, essentially we had to go ahead and register our items. And it's the exact same with blocks. We need to go ahead and register that. So if we come into tutorial mod, we can just call block init dot blocks dot register bus. Very, very simple. So we can just close all of those. And that is it with the code. Before we actually go ahead and close that, actually, let's create another block. Just to quickly show you once again how simple it is. So example 2 block, I've literally just copy pasted it. Let's change the material to, I don't know, dirt. Let's remove the friction, there you go. Just remove that, fantastic. Let's close that. That's it. Now I've added another block. Now we can do the resources. So let's come into our lang first. So this time, as we know, instead of item, it is block.tutorialmod dot, and this time it's example underscore block, and we'll call that example block. Very simple. Let's do the same with our other one, block.tutorialmod dot example 2 underscore block, example 2 block. Obviously these are dumb names, but you would come up with proper names for your items. Then we need to come into models, and actually we don't come into models. So you may think we need to come into models because that's what we did for items, but we don't. So we actually need to create a new directory here, and we need to call this block states. So this is just this basically defines where your models will be located. And we need to do that because with some blocks we might want multiple models depending on XYZ, you know. So let's go file, and we're just going to call this the exact name of our block. So example block.json. Okay, and all we need to do in here is, as before, well, not as before, we need to do something slightly different here. So we actually need to, oh no, that was right. I don't know why I removed that. So we need to call this variants. And this basically will define all of the different variants that our block could have. So we're not going to have any variants, we're just going to have the default sort of variant here. And in here we don't define a model. And this points to the location of our model, so where our model is located. Now for us, that's our mod ID, as usual, and then we put colon, and then it's the package that it's in. So this is a block, so it's in the block package, and then it's just example underscore block, which is the name of our JSON here as well. Let's go ahead. Let's now create the actual block model, which once again needs to be the exact same name. You don't want to put different names here. I mean, you could, but it would get really confusing. There's a high chance you would mess stuff up. So just keep stuff to the same name and you won't have any problems there. So all we need to do in here is, as we did with the item model in the previous episode, we want to first specify the parent, which is Minecraft :block/cube_all. And that is just the model that allows you to do all sides. There are different models. So for example, there is a column model, which you might want to use for pillar blocks, logs, all that stuff. I will cover those different ones in separate tutorials. For now, we're just going to stick with the cube all, and we're going to define the textures. Now for cube all, we need to say all instead of layer 0, and say tutorial mod :blocks/example_block, because that's where our texture will be located inside of textures blocks. So as you can see, this block state here, all this is doing is defining our mod ID. We already know it's in assets, and then it's defining the block folder because it already knows it's in this model folder here. It just doesn't know where. So we need to say it's in the block folder, and then we need to say what it's called, which, as we know, it's called example_block, and it already knows it's a JSON, so we don't need to specify that there. In here, we just say the parent, so we're referring to the cube all model, which says all sides will point to this texture. That's all it is. Really, really simple. However, since we have an item as well, we have our block item, so we need to actually make an item model as well. So let's create a new file in here. Let's just call this example_block.json as usual. So we're just keeping it the same as everything else. We once again need to specify the parent, and this is a little bit different. So what we actually need to do as the parent is we need to point to the block model. So we need to say tutorial mod :block/example_block. So basically what we're doing here is we're saying for the item model, for the block items model, we're going to say the parent is this block model here. And that just means the item will use the same model as the block. If you wanted a 2D texture for the item, you could. You know, it would be very simple. You would just copy this and change it to what you need. You know, you can do that if you want. It's completely up to you. But for majority of circumstances, you're obviously just going to want to have it look the same as the block model. And that's it. So let's just go ahead. Let's copy paste these for our second example block. So we just call it example2block, example2block. Let's do it for the block model as well. Example2block, example2block. And once again for the item model, example2block, example2block. And finally, all we need to go ahead and do is make a texture. So net. And we'll make 16 by 16 texture. Go ahead and just some stuff. I don't really know what I'm going to do. So we'll just do something like this. There you go. Something like that. I don't know. Yeah, and then something like this. The little ones shouldn't be pots. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. So it's on the left. It's in the box this time. And example and sort of. And we'll do this before our second block texture. So this one just separate a little more. And we'll just S and we'll example 2. That's it. So now let's close that. And I'm pretty sure we can run the game. So here we are. Let's go ahead and find our blocks. So we should be able to find them both in here. Oh, there's only one of them. I guess we forgot to register the block item for the second example block, didn't we? Okay, well, that's a very easy fix, luckily. Example 2 block, and yeah, we'll keep it in, actually we'll put it in decoration just to show that it's different. Okay, let's rerun the game. Okay, let's have a look. So let's go into decoration, and there it is. So we have our 2 blocks. Fantastic. And obviously our 2 items as well. If we just grab those out. Fantastic. I actually didn't intend for them to be the same colour. That is very much coincidence. But yeah, there you go. So now you have a block. What can I say? You won't be able to mine it. That is something to mention. So if I go into survival, you see that it just breaks instantly because we haven't set a hardness. We haven't given it a loot table. We haven't added it to any mineable tags. Those things we will be doing not in the next tutorial, but in the tutorial after that one. We'll cover those. They're really simple, so that should hopefully be a very short tutorial. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this one. If you did, please do be sure to smash your face into that like button and subscribe. If you really enjoyed, please do be sure to share it around. And
Commander Brown, do you really think you can defeat me?
Let's find out.
3, 2, 1.
Let's go!
Okay, take this.
I see how it is.
Detroit, urban survival Detroit.
Impossible. How did you do a perfect 90 degrees?
Just like this.